All right. This is a follow up to what I did on the show last night. Some of the topics we were talking about with the NFL controversy, as well as some of the really great vlogs that some individuals put out, especially some of our black brothers and sisters that really see the bullshit for what it is. I played the clip from Peggy Hubbard last night where she called the NFL the National Felon League, and it's spot on accurate in many ways because you really start to see the madness for what it is. And she did a lot of good research on talking about how much how criminally minded many of these players are. Or another fact I saw on her page that pulled out a lot of stuff was the fact that how much the NFL had to pay in back child support for many of these players to make sure they get signed. I mean, that's the type of shenanigans that's going on there. I mean, we're talking like over $500 million with a capital B, $1 billion in back child support situations so they can sign these players because they know that's pennies on the dollar what they're going to make off their skink asses as long as they play ball. However, that being said, if you've pissed off all your fans because you won't even stand for the national anthem, and it clearly shows none of that, but it's a good portion of them are the black players. They're starting to show the true colors in your face, literally, figuratively, and morally. So that's a problem. I've mentioned before, especially after Obama and some of these other entertainers, actors, other individuals of the black persuasion, for example, that since majority of their fan base and clientele are whites, usually upper lower class and lower middle and middle class folks that buy their products, get the tickets to go see the movies or buy their DVDs, whatever the case may be, it's a slap in the face because we are now starting to get a buyer beware type of feel whenever we go to purchase said items. Because now you got to keep asking yourself, hey, should I buy this product? Because is this guy a racist? Does he think that I'm the white devil? Or whatever cases may be. So these are things that are really starting to make white folks take pause when they go purchase their stuff, which really sucks. I mean, for example, I'm a big fan of music. Obviously, you hear a lot on the show. My biggest issue is I'm going to think twice about purchasing albums from black artists, unless they're dead, because the fact that I feel I'm not being appreciated as a listener. I like all forms of music, you know. If there's one thing that I'm very much completely eclectic with, it's my musical taste. I listen to it all. The only shit that I don't really like much is a lot of gangster rap because it's just too negative, especially demeaning towards women all the time and promoting materialism, and really bad folk music. I just can't stand some of that shit. But thanks to our presence on VK, I've actually come across a lot of really great music in Europe. Some of it very ethnic, whether it be Romanian, Ukrainian, a little bit of Russian music, a lot of Eastern European artists I've come across that I'm really interested in their music styles that I've not been exposed to before. Of course, I always like really good metal is still big in Europe. I still like good power metal, especially if it's got a little bit of folk influence in it. Even if it's just a few songs or not necessarily just folk metal, but there's a lot of good folk metal that's really kick-ass. But the problem is a lot of times they resort to death metal vocals and as opposed to melodic power vocals, which I think has a lot more accessibility. For example, like Nightwish has a lot of good power metal stuff, and they occasionally incorporate some folk in it, but it's usually more, heavy synthesizer as opposed to like Fairlight or something like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff out there, and so I'm really appreciative that people on VK post this stuff, and I get exposed to all different kinds of music that I would never have heard before. But the NFL thing is blowing up in her face very quickly. And the thing I thought that was most interesting when I saw Peggy's video was the fact that she took the time, she did the research. In between 2000 and 2014, there were, I'm forgetting how much the total was, but there are hundreds of guys that have had encounters with law enforcement, and almost all of them were black. And the number one most arrested players on a football team in those 14 years were the Minnesota Vikings. Shockingly enough, and I say this facetiously, shockingly enough, number two was, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, they had that stint there for a while where they kept getting accused of, raping their fans and raping hotel staff and all sorts of crazy shit. I used to work near Cincinnati years ago, and the supervisor I had was a big Browns fan, and he had a T-shirt that said, "Who they gonna arrest next?" I thought it was funnier than shit. But again, I've always criticized a lot of Bengals fans. I think they're some of the dumbest people I've ever met, because they know everything about, if Carson Palmer's their quarterback, they'll know everything about that son of a bitch's entire career, down to the latest stat, where they don't know what the fuck Congressman Mike Turner's doing in their district, or what Steve Shabbat's doing in their district in Cincinnati. I mean, seriously, they don't know shit about what their congressman's doing, but they sure as hell know what them Bengals are doing. Oh, you bet your ass. And then to top that off, they'll spend money they don't have, especially every new season, buy a simple T-shirt just because it's got that stupid little high school logo, because that's what it is. That's a font you use for a high school or a pee-wee football team, to get that stupid little B with 3 little black stripes on it. Well, you know what? With the way the Bengals are going, those vertical stripes are going to turn horizontal because they're getting arrested all the time. And yeah, some kind of jails, they do have orange and white stripes. May not have orange and black, but they definitely have orange and white, like Warren County does for their DMOD, for their more heavily charged inmates. So probably won't be too far from it before that. But having said that, Brandon Tatum's 6-minute video on encapsulating the whole crap about the kneel down on the NFL is spot on. This guy's had over 60 million views as of today on like 2 or 3 different mediums, and he's dead on accurate. And he was on Alex Jones today, and I got to listen to his stuff. He's spot on, man. He's fairly articulate. He really knows his shit, and that's what we need, not only from our black population, but we need our law enforcement to know what's going on and to call bullshit and not always follow orders when they know that something is definitely amiss, and say, "No, I'm not going to go do that." So if we had more brothers like him on the police forces, people would be less hostile, or not only that, but just less attitude complexes with black police officers. I've seen in Springboro that some of the black cops we have, they enjoy the fact that they're targeting a middle to upper middle class demographic, because 1 or 2 of them, when they first started, would nail them for every tiny little infraction, and they were making the city buku money. And I think people finally started bitching about it, and so they had to back off. But there's definitely some issues going on there, and no police force, no police department is perfect. There you're gonna have your corrupt cops. We know, Franklin and Springboro and Carlisle and and Dayton and Miamisburg and Centerville and Cincinnati, they all got dirty cops. Not only that, but even if they're not technically on the take, they take and relish in the fact that they can make your life interesting or fuck you up. I've seen it firsthand. So they relish and they literally rub their hands like the merchant meme, knowing that they think they got one on you because they disagree with your politics or because you got a nice car or whatever they want to do. They want to find some reason to make your life just a little more interesting. So you know what I say? Eat a dick straight up. But there are plenty of cops out there who do a good job and they're never acknowledged to the point where sometimes after they retire and they get sick and die, nobody shows up at their funerals, which is bullshit. These are your brothers, man. But anyway, that being said, there's always a Serpico in every department. It just depends on how much the level of corruption is, collusion, and agenda-driven, meter-maid with a gun mentality they got going on there. So, like I said, they will get you for every infraction. And I remember what when I had one of my guests on, Lieutenant Colonel Donald Sullivan, had said, never, ever trust a police officer for the simple fact that they're not out to help you, they're out to screw you. And most of the time, I would say that is generally right, because they have an agenda and they have orders they have to follow and this, that, and the other, which sucks. It really sucks because I think a lot of these guys do get enforced because they want to make a difference. They love their neighborhoods, or even if they go to a new town and decide they want to do something, that they want to be effective. And I think somewhere along the way sometimes when they are pushed to do a certain agenda or to induce a certain stratagem that just definitely most of us would definitely balk at, I definitely think that over time they lose sight of themselves and they lose their parameters, and that's a problem. I've seen that as well. You know, I've some of these cops I'd talked to for years, either as a teenager or as an adult, whatever the case may be, and these are not your friends. I mean, I'm gonna tell you what. I've seen cops that I was cool with for years, that, you know, I like them as not just police officers, but as human beings, to the point where I would definitely invite them into my home. I'll definitely be thinking twice now, especially with some of these fuckers wearing body cams, because one thing you have to take pause in is, even if you open the door and say, nah, you can't come in, or if you got a warrant, you can't come in, because the fact that whatever they do, if they can get even a sliver of that camera to look inside your house and see something they don't like, they'll trump up a charge and find an excuse to come into your house. So, hell, it could be subversive literature. We've seen in Texas where people got pulled over and they were charged with domestic terrorism for simply having a copy of a constitution that they got from a Tea Party or even from their own GOP. Sometimes they pass them out, or even in churches they'll pass out constitutions that have biblical verses in them, to try to show that, you know, there's a biblical correlation with the Constitution, which is completely bull. But that being said, it was a lot of Christian men who helped put it together, but there are a lot of deists too that weren't Christians that also contributed to that wonderful document. It's not perfect, but you know what? It's the best fucking thing in the history of humanity to make it so that we can at least prosper, get our stuff together, and be able to grow. And I'm tired of these politicians on the left and right that keep referring to us as a democracy. We are not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic, and that's what we need to be referring to. Just like anytime I do a speech, my local GOP or a Tea Party or whatever the case may be, I always refer to the great sovereign state of Ohio. And so eventually it may take a while, but hopefully that rhetoric will start to sink in, and then people start to go, and they'll start to understand what state sovereignty really is. All right, so resolutionrdo.com, sonnythomas.com. You can follow us on Twitter at resolutionrdo, at Sonny Thomas Show, as well as at Real Sonny Thomas. And you can also follow us on Gab at gab.ai/Sonny Thomas Show. And for our European Russian listeners, you go to vk.com/Sonny Thomas Show or vk.com/resolutionrdo. Also, we could definitely use your support to help our network grow. Go to paypal.me/resolutionradio. That's paypal.me/resolutionradio. And give us a small contribution, whatever you can, large contribution if you choose. Very much appreciated. Those that have already have helped us already expand some of our computer capabilities so we can continue to bring you a top-notch broadcast program. And again, it just helps us to grow and be able to do more with the broadcast. We really appreciate it. Salam Mahath, and again, sonnythomas.com, resolutionrdo.com.